So I hope this slide you are able to see.
Yes, yes. Sir, there is a hide button. I think if you can hide that, the slide, last line of the slide, you will be missing. Just,
Sorry.
sir, there is, yeah, yeah. Hide. Just,
Hmm.
yes, yes.
Hmm.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So welcome to this SPSS master class
Sir, thank you, sir.
preparatory session day one.
Sir,
Agenda for today's discussion is identify and discuss research design. Am I
yeah.
audible clearly?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Theory of measurement and scaling, decision tree for choosing a statistical test, basic assumptions in statistics. What are the basic assumptions that we should follow for choosing a statistical test? Then introduction to SPSS environment and data cleaning and coding. Right. So this is our agenda for today. So the very first thing that is of great importance whenever you go for writing your research proposal, research article, or even the thesis, or whenever you start your research work. So the very first thing is deciding on a research design. Reason being, this research design provides you the framework that how you have to proceed forward. Because until and unless you follow a specific framework or a skeleton, it's of no use because then you will be in a very vague situation. And the function of the research design is to ensure that the evidence that you have obtained enables you to effectively address to the research problem. We say that every research starts with a problem, and to make sure that you clearly specify your research problem, you find a amicable solution to that particular research problem, it becomes of utmost important that you uh, make your research design as much as effective as you can so that you could effectively find the solution to your particular research problem or your research question that can give you more clarity rather than putting you in a ambiguous situation, right? So
Yes, sir.
this is somewhat theoretical. We only know that okay, there are four types of research design: descriptive, exploratory, descriptive, causal, and experimental. However, there are almost nine kinds of research designs. The first one is the action research design. If you these are the research design which we use. Actually, they do not tend to uh, study the existing theory and expand that theory. This type of research design is basically used when you want to find a solution to a particular problem, when you want to frame a policy. So whenever you see that government is coming up with some policy like Niti Aayog is coming up, government is coming up, RBI is coming up, before arriving at those policies, they do action research. That's why you might have heard this statement many times that the policy has been implemented based on the action research. Okay.
Sir.
This study basically tells you collaborative and adaptive research design that lends itself to use in work or community situations. It is for the see this research is done in the community settings rather than in market settings, and the design focuses on pragmatic and solution-driven research rather than testing theories. In most of our research, we test the theories. Here, the aim is not to test the theory, but to bring a solution. Second one is the case study design. As you know, normally that going in depth of a particular case, let's say sales is decreasing in a particular organization or a particular product, or let's say during this COVID, the tourism sector is undergoing an economic meltdown. So, what solutions could we bring so that this a particular company, I won't talk of if you talk of the industry as a whole, it won't be a case study design. let's say particular Thomas Cook is going under economic meltdown or having problems. So how it can overcome those problems once the thing returns to normalcy? How they can create a difference? How they can win the competition? For this purpose, you design a study which is called case study design. You go into the in depth of each and everything of that company and come up with the solution. Uh, this case study design could be applied to a variety of methodologies and rely on variety of sources to investigate the research problem. And this design can provide detailed descriptions of specific and rare cases. So whenever you see that, okay, there were case studies done. Actually, case studies just not for reading purpose. During your post graduation, you might have gone through many cases. Those cases are meant for providing a solution also. So whenever we go out for case, let's say some Harvard person has written a case and then they leave it to the audience to come up with an amicable solution. That kind of design is a case study design. Next one is the causal design, which mostly we do in our social science or management studies, where there is a dependent variable. Yes, you want to say something?
No, no, sir. No, sir.
Where there is a dependent variable y and an independent variable x, and they try to find the relationship between x and y. Mostly we do such kind of studies, that what is the effect of the dependent variable x on the dependent variable y. Then comes your this cohort designs. Cohort basically means when you are conducting any study to a group of people. Let's say I want to study the effect of celebrity endorsement on the mindsets of youths or on the mindsets of teenagers. So all my sample that I will take will be only teenagers. It won't be divided, means it won't comprise of people of higher ages or people of lower ages or people above 20. It will consist only of people from the age 13 to 19. So this group will be called as a cohort group. For example, let's say Russia has announced that they have developed a vaccine against COVID-19, coronavirus, but they are saying that even after the successful testing of all the phases, they are unable to give it to the public before January 2020. The obvious reason is that the cohort studies haven't been done. That how this vaccine is going to affect older patients, younger patients, children. So you have to create different cohorts of group of people. Cohort design is basically when you do your study on the group of people who share the common characteristic. Next one is the cross sectional design. When you try to study many variables at one point of time, either one or many variables at one point of time. So all our social sciences researches that we do, let's say, what is the effect of advertising of a particular brand on shopping behavior? So advertising of a particular brand on shopping behavior, this we are trying to do at one point of time. This is cross-sectional design. The moment I say that effect of advertisement on the shopping behavior of the people over a period of 2 years, this would become a longitudinal study, right? So basically, we divide again into cross-sectional and longitudinal study. Longitudinal studies for a period of time, whereas cross-sectional studies at one point of time. So all the financial data, let's say you want to measure the performance of a bank. Performance of a bank or performance of a company cannot be measured at one point of time. You can have to measure it over the period of one quarter. Okay, through one quarter, how much they have performed throughout the year, how they much have been performed, or what is their performance since past 5 years. So this is you are trying to study one single variable, that is performance over a period of time. This is called longitudinal study. But if you are trying to study it at one point of time, it will become a cross-sectional study. Then comes the exploratory and the descriptive design. See, when you are unaware of the characteristic of the population and you want to try to know the characteristic of the population, that what exactly the population is, what is their characteristic, you have the questions, research questions like what it is. So this is called exploratory design. The moment you start describing that characteristic of the population, you are going for a descriptive design. So let's say if I am coming across a variable right now, very relevant variable COVID-19, how COVID-19 is affecting the economy. Now, the first you want to know that what is the COVID-19 and what is its pattern of spread, how it is affecting the population, or how it is having the effect on the workplaces, how it is having the effect on the production, how it is having the effect on the GDP. All these things you are trying to explore for the first time. So this is the exploratory design. The moment you start describing that, okay, due to the lockdown, the GDP has gone to this level and the work has stopped, that the contribution of the industry to the per capita income has decreased. All these things you are describing and then saying that due to this, the overall GDP is decreasing or there is an economic meltdown. You are doing a descriptive design. So most often when we go for a literature review and then go for a questionnaire design and collecting the data to validate the existing study. So first part when we are exploring the literatures is exploratory design and the second part becomes a descriptive design. So most often we follow a mixed approach. We cannot say it as a standalone descriptive or a standalone exploratory. What we do, we call it as a exploratory and descriptive both. Next come the experimental design. Experimental design is nothing. It's simply you create two groups. Let's say I want to measure effect of remdesivir on the treatment of COVID-19. So can I give remdesivir to each and every person and measure its outcome?
No, it is not possible to give everybody.
Let's say I have 100 people. So should I give it to 100 people and measure its effectiveness?
Uh, yeah, if the number is 100, maybe we can consider, because the population size depends on it. If the total population size is vast and we consider only 100 people.
So why not do like this, that you divide 50 people into one group and 50 people into another group. To one group you give remdesivir and to the other group you give the normal treatment that is being given for COVID-19.
Yes, yes, yes.
See, already they are getting some treatment for COVID-19. They are COVID patients, that's why you are giving remdesivir to them. Na?
Yeah, yes.
But they are also getting some other treatment. So if you will be giving remdesivir to all the 100 people, how you will come to know that whether it's the effect of remdesivir or the existing treatment?
Yeah. It is not possible, so it is better to group them into two.
You may end up in confusion, na, ki it
Yes.
might be due to remdesivir that their situation improved or due to the existing treatment. So what you will do, you will divide your group into two groups. One will be called experimental group and another one will be called a control group.
Yeah.
So to the experimental group, you will start giving remdesivir, only remdesivir, right?
Yes.
And to the controlled group, you will be giving the usual treatment that is being given. And if people who are getting remdesivir shows significant improvement in their symptoms, then only you can arrive to a conclusion that yes, the efficacy of remdesivir is far better in treatment of COVID-19 rather than other
The normal
medication.
treatment. Yes.
You have to compare for the both group. That's why we create a control group. Control group is a group which is getting normal treatment, and
Yeah.
experimental group is that is getting the extra treatment This extra treatment is called the intervention. So any group getting an intervention is the experimental group, and the group getting the normal treatment is called the control group. Let's say I want to study the effect of extra class on student performance. So I cannot give the extra class to all the students. I have to create a group of students who will be given extra class, and to the normal group I have to, or the control group, I have to give the normal classes that as per the schedule. And then if there is a significant improvement in the grades of students getting extra class, then only I can say that extra class have a significant effect on students performance. Okay.
Yes.
Exploratory design I have already discussed with you. Historical design, it is a design which is done mostly in the uh, historical settings. When you try to expand the existing theory, there is an existing theory and you just try to add something to that theory. Let's say you know the Newton's law and you want to add something to the Newton's law of motion. Newton has three laws of motion. You studied those three laws and try to expand those three laws, or create some new phenomena out of that. It would be a kind of historical design. Okay.
Okay.
So these are the 9 designs. Basically, when we are going for the designs, these are the designs flaw that we should avoid. Lack of specificity. Most of the research designs or research starts with a problem, but we do not specify clearly that what exactly we want to measure. That needs to be specified. Your research problem has to be defined clearly. It should be substantiated by theoretical framework. It could not be a case that you are trying to measure consumer behavior or people's buying behavior towards a brand of shampoo, and you are taking all literatures pertaining to toothpaste or let's say garments. Okay, you cannot do that. Most of the people, you would see the literature that they include everything related to the consumer behavior. Be very specific with your theoretical framework. Make your theoretical framework in alignment with your research problem. Don't beat about the bush. Okay.
Sir,
Then also, yes,
sir, how to develop the theoretical framework?
from your literatures. See,
Okay.
theoretical framework has to be developed based on your previous literatures.
Okay. Sir, is any sample is there so that I can go through this and I can just find out that how
What is
to.
okay? What is the topic of your PhD research right now?
Yeah, that is corporate social responsibility, mostly in the context of global reporting initiatives, deficiency in global reporting initiatives. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you want to develop a theoretical framework for corporate social responsibility in context of global.
In context of global reporting initiatives.
In context of global reporting initiative.
Yes.
For this, you have to build a theoretical framework that okay, these things. Theoretical framework means, yeah, you will be identifying your variables under that study. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So these are the studies. These are the variables that I am going to do. I am going to take into account. These will be the constructs that I am going to take into account. Or sometimes you take a theoretical model also, that this is the model I am going to test, that how corporate social responsibility affects the working of a business if we put into a factor called global reporting systems. Okay.
Okay.
So how this framework you can develop? You can develop this framework by going through the literature or the past work that has been done in this context.
Okay.
Okay. Then
Okay.
only you can identify. See, if you are identifying the variable on your own whims and fancies, on your own assumptions, it's wrong. Whenever you frame your hypotheses, whenever you frame your variables, it has to come from the past studies. So somewhere you have to
Okay.
correlate past studies with your own theoretical framework. If you are not doing that, you will end up in a weak situation and you will do something wrong. At one point of time, you realize that my approach was wrong. So your approach from the very start should be very precise. So
Okay.
theoretical framework means identifying your variables, putting your hypotheses, taking up some model. That all has to come from your past studies. See, there are three levels in a study:
Okay.
variable, construct, and item.
Sir, I could not listen properly. Yeah.
There are three levels of measurement. What you measure basically in your study: a variable,
Okay.
okay,
Okay.
a construct. See, there are variable can't be measured directly, so you make some constructs to measure those variables. Okay, can you
Okay.
measure corporate social responsibility directly?
No.
What you will do to measure corporate social responsibility?
I may take one variable like how the governance within the corporate
No,
governance.
corporate,
In the,
say
yeah.
corporate social, say corporate social responsibility is your variable.
Yeah.
It is a variable. How will you measure this variable? Of course, you will take some factors that leads to corporate social responsibility, which are the indicators of corporate social responsibility.
Yeah.
See, directly you cannot measure CSR. What you will do, you will take some factors that leads to CSR.
Yeah.
On the basis of that, those only you can say that this is the CSR, exactly, corporate social responsibility. These factors are known as constructs.
Okay.
Again, those factors cannot be measured directly. So, what you will do, you will make some statements and ask people their agreement or disagreement or whatever on those statements, right?
Yes.
These are called items. So whatever you write in your questionnaire is the item. Those items are intended to measure a particular construct. Means we call this step as operationalization of the concept, operationalization of the construct. Okay, and
Okay.
these constructs in return measure your variable.
Okay.
Let me tell you one example, another example that will make very clear to you. You want to measure
Okay.
people's intention towards a particular policy of the government, whether they have a positive intention or negative intention. Okay,
Okay.
can you measure this intention directly?
Um, no, sir. It's not possible. How can we measure directly?
If you are trying to measure it directly, then what you can have questions that only in one question you can measure this, that whether your intention is good or bad. What will happen only based on this question, one question, if you are trying to measure this, there will always be a biasness in the response. Nobody will respond you
Yes.
properly.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so you have to divide it into a few constructs,
Hmm.
and then you will make items to measure those constructs. On the basis of that only you can measure the intention. That's how we do whenever we measure people's perception. So perception cannot be measured directly. So what we do, we measure it through attitudes,
Okay.
and attitude is again measured by making some statements which are taken on a 5 point Likert scale.
Yeah.
So by this, first we define the variable, then we define our constructs, and then we define our items. So
Items.
defining your variable is a part of your theoretical framework, right?
Okay.
And then you will also define that, okay, what will be the constructs that you will be using to measure this, and then how will you operationalize those constructs through items. So whenever you make a questionnaire, it should be like that. I have seen people making questionnaire in a very haphazard manner. Let's say I want to measure. Uh, I have got a claim. Means it's a very well-known claim that employee motivation leads to satisfaction.
Okay.
Correct? Hmm?
Yeah. Yes.
See, you cannot measure employee motivation also directly and satisfaction also directly. That cannot be
Yeah.
measured directly. So
Yeah.
motivation, again you will divide motivation into few constructs, that what are the things that leads to motivation. So that can be measured by one construct could be the productivity. If people are more productive, that means they are highly motivated. Okay, the
Yeah.
kind of innovation they are bringing into their workplace. These could be the indicators of motivation.
Okay.
Then satisfaction again cannot be measured directly. You will
Okay.
have a construct to measure the satisfaction, that how much punctual the employee is. Okay, what is
Okay.
his work life? What is his work and family life balance? A
Okay.
satisfied employee will always maintain a better balance at workplace and also in his personal life. Else his life will be full of chaos. Okay,
Okay.
but these things again you cannot measure directly. So you will make some questions for productivity, some
Okay.
questions for measuring, some statement for measuring innovation, like how much innovation you have since past 6 months. What are the innovative things that you are doing? Question like this.
Okay.
Measuring their work balance. You will have
Okay.
the question that okay, how much time you devote to your family, how much time you devote to the workplace. Okay, whether your family matters to you equally as your work. Questions like this. Okay,
Okay.
but what I have seen, people put all questions very randomly. Why not put it construct wise? That okay, first you write all the questions related to this productivity. Then write all the question, give the heading productivity, give the heading innovation, ask all the questions regarding to innovation. What this will help you in, that the respondent won't get distracted. For suppose if I am asked, my question number one is measuring productivity, then question number two is measuring something else, three is measuring something else, and then question number 10 is again measuring productivity.
Oh. Oh.
I respondent, I will lose track. Are you getting my
Yes.
point?
Yes. Yes.
So you have to put everything while making your questionnaire. You have to put, or if you are even taking interviews, then has to be in a haphazard manner. Make it construct wise. So always remember when making your questionnaire that you have to bring in three things: your variables, your constructs, and what will be the items that measure your construct. This is the entire theoretical framework. Okay.
Yes.
Significance of your research, whether does it has any significance or not? How you are relating your current study with the past research, that's also important. If it's not connected to the past research, or only it's expanding the theories of past research, it of no use. You have to bring in some new suggestions also. Then contribution to the field, significance, relationship, and contribution to the field, these are the part of the outcome of your study. Provincialism is again one bigger problem. What we do, mostly we take the sample as per our proximity. Let's say I want to measure. You live in which city?
Pardon?
You live in which city?
Yeah. In Bangalore, sir.
Hmm?
I'm living in Bangalore.
Okay, you are living in Bangalore.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to measure the uh, average annual income of people of Bangalore.
Okay.
Can I go to each and every person and ask their income living in Bangalore? What is the population of Bangalore right now?
Yeah. It is around 1.25 crore.
1.2. Can you go to 1.25 crore people and ask about their income?
No, sir.
You will take some samples.
Yes.
So while taking the sample, now you tell me, Who will be the people whom you will be taking as a sample? Put yourself into the real situation. You are a research scholar over there or faculty?
No, no, I'm a research scholar, sir.
Which university?
National Law School.
Or you are national laws. Okay. So, who will be the people whom you will be going with your questionnaire asking about their this income level?
Sir, mostly we have to categorize the people according to the living standard. Maybe some area we can consider the slum area, other area middle class, where the government we can see
So,
the
put
middle
yourself.
income group.
This is very hypothetical response. I am saying if you have to conduct this study, what exactly you will do? This is very hypothetical response you are giving. Suppose if you have to conduct this study, what you will do? Your answer is correct. We will go to slum area. We will take people from this area, from that area. But in real life, what you will do?
Um, Sir, I have to go to only few people to those area where I know that these are the people that are living and their living standard is not so well. Somewhere I find that rich category people are there. Then I cannot take all the responsibilities to go everybody, but I can just guess that these are the area where this income category people are living. I can categorize the income first. That what will be the lowest income level, then middle
How you
income
can
group.
categorize the income level if you do not know? You are trying to know the income level, na? So category you cannot create beforehand. You have to do a pilot study actually
Yeah.
to understand the income level because you are not knowing that. After that only you can make the category. Basically, what people do, they start from their own societies, the society you
Yes.
are living in. Am I
Yes.
correct?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Now, if I'm giving you this task, there is very obvious chances that you will first give that questionnaire to your colleagues,
Yeah.
then to the people living in your society or in your neighborhood. Let's say that all have reported their income to be around 75,000 per month. On this basis, can you conclude that the average income of the entire people of uh, the Bangalore is something around 75,000? Can you conclude this from this study?
No. No.
If you are
I not.
concluding, you are doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So that is called provincialism. We go for proximity sampling. The people we can approach easily. I have seen many professors conducting researches. You might have gone through papers. They conduct the research and they write this about the sample were the students of their own B school or their own university.
Yeah.
Mostly, what happens in such case? Suppose you are a research scholar or you are taking some classes, and if you give a questionnaire to those students, will they give their free response? What they will do, they will be under pressure कि, oh, sir has given this questionnaire, we have to return it today by filling it. They won't even read your questions. They will put tick on like 4 4 4 5 5 5 5 S no, right?
Yes.
Your entire response will get skewed. So always, this is actually what we call as this leads to another problem which we call as CMB, common method bias. The bias comes from the researcher side that they do not take heterogeneous population, rather that they do take homogeneous population in their proximity. This is called provincialism. You have to avoid.
Yeah.
Then you have to be very clear with your objectives, hypotheses, and research questions. In most of the theses, I never find a research question. I only find the objective and the hypothesis. See, every research article manuscript should have a research question, and the ultimate aim of conducting that study is to finding the answer to those research questions. Then only it will be properly aligned. Your findings, if they are able to answer those research questions, then only I can say that they are correct findings, else they are not. the findings. You are writing something random out of a random data. You have taken some random data, you have taken some random test, and now you are reporting some random result. And this happens. To minimize this, you have to be very precise with your objectives. Then your hypothesis. Hypotheses cannot be your own assumptions based on. See, it has to be your own assumptions, but not assumptions out of thin air. That has to come from the past studies, the literature review, and then a few research questions. And in the finding section of your manuscript, you have to write the answer to these research questions. And you have to write that, okay, my this finding is an answer to research question, let's say research question 1 or research question 2. Then it makes a manuscript more readable, more acceptable. Then your research methodology have to be precise. It has to be scientific rather than a random research design. I'll let you know how to decide on a research. Always avoid the proximity sampling, as I have told you. Techniques and instruments, you have to be very clear. You have to give a proper statistical treatment to your data. Sometimes we do not check for data cleaning and directly go for analysis, and at the end we come to know that there were errors. So first you have to treat the data very clearly, means you have to code them properly, you have to clean them properly, you have to check for outliers. All these we will be doing today. Don't use jargons in your report vocabulary. Ethical dilemmas has to be taken care of through confidentiality statements to the respondent, because if somebody is giving you a response, they have to be assured that their data won't be used for any other purpose rather than the research. And then limitations of the study has to be clearly defined.
Sir, I have one doubt related to how to code the data. Mostly the questionnaire, when we code the questionnaire, then how to do it? What is the process?
Means which scale you should use, or what you are asking me?
No, means for feeding the data into Excel or to SPSS, we have to code it. When we want to code it, how to code it actually? What is the
I, I'll,
process?
I'll, I'll, I'll just let me finish this theoretical part, then moving on to the practical part, I'll tell you.
Okay, okay, sir.
This is the very important part, measurement and scaling. Why? Because on the basis of your type of data or the measurement, you have to choose on the statistical test. So basically, you have heard of the four types of in your coursework, that there is a nominal or variable, ordinal variable, interval variable, and ratio variable.
Yeah.
So the ordinal variable and nominal variable are divided into a category called categorical variables. So major categories are categorical variables and metric variables.
Okay.
Categorical variables are categories, whereas metric variables are those variables which can be measured on a scale.
Okay.
So nominal and ordinal are categorical variable, and interval and ratio are metric variables. You have to keep this into mind, because every decision tree will first take into account whether your data is categorical or metric. Throughout my sessions, if you could have seen, I have used the terms continuous variable, metric variable, categorical variable, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
So first you have to be clear about what is the nature of your measurement. I hope, are you clear with the concept of this nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio?
No, sir, I'm not clear.
Okay. See, nominal variable is just for identification purpose, and you cannot apply any statistical test on them. Only measure the frequencies.
Okay.
Okay. For example, male, female, gender. Okay.
Okay.
Nationality,
Yeah.
name, roll number, anything on which you cannot apply statistical test. See, on nominal variable you cannot apply any statistical test. They are just for identification purpose. Let's say I want to conduct some study across 3 states. So my one set of respondent I'll say is from Kerala, another one is from Karnataka, third one is from let's say Tamil Nadu. So only I will indicate one is equal to Karnataka, two is equal to Kerala, three is equal to Tamil Nadu. Okay, and I'll put this.
Okay.
This will only tell me that if the respondent is coded as one, means see these are the numbers 1 to 3 that I have done coding, but I cannot create any mean or median or any statistical correspondence. Only it will give me an identification that those who have been coded as 1 belongs to Kerala, let's say Karnataka. Coded as 2 belongs to Kerala. Coded as 3 belongs to Tamil Nadu. Only this much. Ordinal variable is again when you measure some characteristic, but there is no equal difference between the characteristics. For example, you are saying that right now Kerala has a better recovery rate than Karnataka, and Karnataka has a better recovery rate than Tamil Nadu. Okay.
Okay.
Is there any difference between these measurements? Because see, Karnataka recovery rate is higher than Karnataka recovery rate is higher than Kerala. Kerala's recovery rate is higher than Tamil Nadu. But is the recovery rate difference between Kerala and Karnataka as same as the recovery rate between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu?
No, I think.
The moment the differences are not equal, means distances are not equal, it becomes an ordinal variable. Okay.
Okay. Sir, can you give another example?
First, let me tell you, I'll give a very perfect example which you will never forget.
Okay.
Third one is the interval variable. The moment you extend the ordinal variable or assign some weights to the ordinal variable and you create equal distances, your variable becomes a interval variable. So the difference between the 2 points is always same. That's why they are called interval.
Okay.
So the Likert scale that you take 1 to 5, okay.
Okay.
That is very ordinal in nature. In its basic essence, it's very ordinal scale because you are saying strongly disagree to strongly agree. Now the difference between strongly disagree to strongly to disagree cannot be the same as strongly agree and agree difference. Why? Because for you strongly disagree could have some different meaning. For me, that the point at which you are strongly disagreeing to me, I can give some disagree kind of thing. It's not because that even I also strongly disagree. I can say okay, I disagree only. Okay.
Okay.
So what is happening? 2-3 people are responding on the same scale. They are showing their disagreement, but disagreement is not having equal distances between them. That is the ordinal. You are just rating them, your agreement. So that's an ordinal scale. The moment you expand it, it becomes a interval scale.
Okay.
Now let me give you another example. I have 3 students in my class.
Okay.
Roll number 1, roll number 2, roll number 3.
Okay.
This roll number 1, roll number 2, roll number 3 is what?
Means it is the real number only.
It is the identification of those 3 students, na?
Yeah.
I can only say that student with, let's say I am Vishal, student with the name Vishal having roll number 1. So roll number 1 means Vishal.
Yeah.
Roll number 2 means Tirtha.
Yeah.
Roll number 3 means somebody else. This is only an identification number.
Yes.
This is a nominal variable.
Okay.
This is a number. It is but can you quantify it? You cannot quantify it.
No, I can't quantify. Yeah.
You cannot quantify it. You cannot add all these numbers and take their mean. It would make no sense. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, I am saying that roll number 1 is a good student. Roll number 2 is a better student, and roll number 3 is the best student in the class.
Okay.
Is the difference between good and better the same as the difference between better and best?
No, it is not defined any kind of.
It's
How
not
can we?
defined. You
Yeah.
are just giving a ordinal kind of rank. Good student, better student, and best student.
Yes.
It can't be means the distances cannot be equal
Yeah.
because the student that you are considering good, I can consider him to be an average.
Yeah.
It's not clearly defined. This becomes an ordinal scale. Okay.
Okay.
So let's say age categories. Does age category makes any sense? Nothing. You only tell that okay, this age category belongs to the younger generation, this belongs to the older generation, this belongs to the teenagers. Is there
Yeah.
any equal distance? No.
No.
So that is a kind of ordinal variable. That's why these two are called as categorical variables.
Okay.
Now at the third stage, I've been asked that okay, what is your basis of rating the students at good, better, and best? So I am saying roll number one is good because he ranked third in the class. Roll number two is better because he stood second in the class. Roll number three is best because he stood first in the class. Clear?
Yeah.
Now what I have done, I have assigned weight to that ranking. Weightage to that ranking that the person who stood first in the class is the best one, who stood in the second class is the better one, and who stood third in the class is a good student. And now the distances are equal. There can be nothing between 1 and 2. There could be nothing between 2 and 3. The ranks are now equal. The difference between 1 and 2 is as same as difference between 2 and 3. A difference of 1. Clear?
Weightage. Yeah, but sir, how can we distinguish this? Suppose we are not telling that that person is scoring. The best candidate has scored this much of mark or percentage.
That's
The
a, that's
better.
that what I'm coming to. The moment you see, till now you were saying that good, better, best student. First you
Yeah.
identified the roll numbers, then you said good, better, best student. There
Yeah.
was no clarity in what makes them good, better, best. You have become more clear by good, better, best that okay, he stood first in the class, he stood second in the class, he stood third in the class. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
this is the interval variable because now the distances are equal.
Uh,
Okay.
Whether we presume distances are equal or what exactly is it?
No, I'm not assuming. See, if I'm ranking them first, second, and third,
Hmm.
okay,
Okay.
so the distance between one first and second will always be distance between second and third. There is a difference of one rank. Due to one rank, one person due to one rank, difference of one rank, another person has become the second one in the class. Due to the difference of one rank, the another one has become third in the class. Okay.
Okay, I got it now. It is the rank difference only. Yeah.
But what is the basis of differentiating? That answer lies in creating a ratio variable. So now I
Yes.
am saying that roll number one, the person who got first rank in the class is scored 98.3%. Okay,
Okay.
the person who stood second in the class scored 98.27%. The person who stood third in the class scored 97 point, 97.22%. So you see a small difference can create a difference in the ranks.
Yes.
And now you are becoming being more precise. That actually your question was that sir, how we will say that he is the first or second or the third.
Yes.
So based on their accurate exact scores. So when we take exact scores, what we are doing, we are taking ratio variables. Let's say I am measuring IQ score. IQ score is the exact score. I'm not rating it somewhere. It's a ratio variable. Let's say in your case you'll be measuring CSR. So you are not saying that this company stood first in the CSR, second in the CSR. First, you will measure their CSR scores, that how much they are adhering to the guidelines of corporate social responsibility in terms of the reporting, right?
Yeah. Yes.
You will measure it on a score. Let's say you are making 100 marks questionnaire or 100 marks assessment scale, and measuring that, okay, they have complied to 70%, another one has complied to 72.3%, another one has complied to 80%. These are exact scores. Now you are taking ratio variables.
Okay.
Clear on
Yeah.
this, or still there is confusion? If there is confusion on this part, clear it, because this will be used always again and again over your research.
Yeah, sir. When I will design the questionnaire, at that time
Mhm.
the point is in my research program case,
Hmm.
I may not go for any nominal or ordinal. Maybe it may be directly started with interval, then ratio.
No, see, nominal and ordinal you will create in terms of, let's say, you will be taking some SMEs also.
Yes.
You will be taking Fortune 500 companies also.
No, SMEs we cannot take because there is a CSR limit. That
So, 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 what is your plan? Means which companies you will be taking into account?
no, sir. My problem statement is something different. You can just guess it. I'm not telling that how the companies are performing.
Hmm.
I'm telling that the government has a guideline, and that
Hmm.
guideline has defined a
Hmm.
particular kind of reporting format.
Okay.
And that reporting format is matching, that is a common format for every industry.
Hmm.
But all the industry does not have the same kind of CSR activities.
Okay.
And if they do not have the similar kind of some sector like the software sector, they are service sector.
Okay. So, of course, you will be taking a few different industry sectors.
Yes. Yes. My point is now sector-wise industry should have a different reporting format, and
Hmm.
that different reporting format which was created by global reporting initiative by a global body is not accepted in India. My point
Hmm.
is then how the transparency in governance can be considered in India that the CSR is executing properly, because your reporting itself is a faulty reporting system. We do not know that what you are doing internally.
So for that, you will take a few different industry sectors and see that how they are complying to these reporting standards.
Yes, yes. Oh,
So,
how
so
they
the
are,
more,
sir?
so the hmm,
How they are doing it against the global reporting standard. My point is,
how,
if the yeah,
that's what I'm saying. You will see now how much they are complying to that global reporting standard.
yes,
So of course, you'll be taking different categories.
yes, sectoral
Huh.
category I will do.
Okay, the moment you are doing again, you are taking the categorical variable, no ordinal variable.
Yeah, the moment I will do that, that will be the categorical variable,
Yeah,
because yes,
because at one point of time you will also want to measure, compare sector wise, that okay, which sector is complying better than the another sector or not.
no, sir. In that case, I have in mind. I will not compare the sector, but I will compare the similar range of CSR, means financial range, means same company.
Hmm.
If you can consider, this is software company. One software company has a CSR fund of 100 crore. Another
Hmm.
chemical industry which have also the range of fund 100 to 150. So I will take it from the same category. How they
So
perform in,
you will be comparing these two companies, na, somewhere.
yeah, I will compare these two companies.
So you will be comparing these companies. So first you will have to categorize these companies. So that will become an ordinal variable, na?
Yeah.
The
Yes.
categories of your company will be the ordinal variable.
Yes.
So see, some now you have, when you will go for analysis, then you will see that whether this comparison needs, whether they are categorical variable, then categorical variable has different kind of statistical test, and metric variable has different kind of statistical test. Again, in one particular company will be giving your questionnaire to different uh, people at different hierarchical level in the management.
Yes. Yeah. True.
Of course, you will not give to only one person. They might be having, even if you are saying that okay, I'll go to top notch managers only. Even that managers might be having different hierarchy level.
Yes. Correct.
So again, you are creating a categorical variable. So few of the things you have to take categorically, and few of the things you have to take on a metric scale.
Yes.
Okay. The responses that you will measure, that will be the metric scale, and their categories that you will be creating, that will be the categorical, either nominal or ordinal.
Yeah.
And then only you can decide on the test. Okay. Now, one basic difference between interval and ratio variable is the concept of zero. As you can see, if zero value means nothing, that means a ratio variable. But if zero value means something, then it's an interval variable. So, what I mean to say that in case of interval variable, there is no much difference between the interval and the ratio variable. Only difference is the value of zero. Even zero has some value in case of interval variable, but in case of ratio variable, zero doesn't have any value. If I say zero means nothing at all. That's why I say even 0.111% could make a 0.0001% could make a difference in the ranks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
What I mean by this, the concept of zero. So we say that in interval scale, zero is arbitrary, whereas in ratio scale, the zero is absolute. So if I am saying that the temperature of this room is 0 degrees centigrade, so am I saying that this room doesn't contain any temperature at all?
No. No.
Because if I am surviving at 0 degrees centigrade, that means there is some temperature.
Yeah.
Else I couldn't have survived. So if I am saying temperature of this room is 0 degrees centigrade, where zero does not mean no temperature at all, what I am doing, I am taking this temperature as interval variable.
Yeah.
And the moment I am saying that the temperature of this room is 273 Kelvin, which is known as absolute zero. What I am
Yeah.
saying, there is no temperature at all. Everything ceased to exist. Everything ceased to exist at 273 Kelvin. That is also known as absolute zero. Okay.
Okay.
Or let's say I am saying temperature of Bangalore is 30 degrees centigrade, and temperature of Jammu and Kashmir is 15 degrees centigrade. So can I say that Bangalore is two times hotter than Jammu and Kashmir?
No. No.
I cannot say. The only thing that I can say is Bangalore is having 15 degree more temperature than Jammu and Kashmir.
Yes.
I cannot say it's two times hotter. That's
Yeah.
the concept of ratio variable. Clear?
Yeah.
I won't go into types of scaling techniques. I'll send you this and you can say. Now coming to the decision trees. Why I was telling you the concept of that uh, scales or the measurement, because you see that in this decision tree, the very first thing is your, either it's a metric data or categorical data.
Yes.
This is the point of decision.
Yes.
There are two kind of samples I'm taking: independent sample and dependent sample. See what we have in independent. See, either you have no categories within your independent variable. If you are having no categories, then you will go for one sample t-test. I hope you are aware of that. I have done in the first day of the module.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what if you have two categories of your independent variable? Then you have to go for two sample tests. Okay.
Okay.
There are two things: dependent variable and independent variable. Are you clear of the concept of dependent and independent variable?
Oh, yeah,
Hmm?
I'm clear, but still, if you can repeat it, sir, it will be better again.
In simple terms, dependent variable is the variable which gets affected. Okay,
Okay.
you can write it. Dependent variable sometimes refers as DV. You
Okay.
write it, it would be better.
Yeah.
DV is the variable that gets affected, and in a system, it's endogenous in nature. Sorry, it's exogenous in nature. Dependent variable is exogenous in nature. Exogenous variable means it's out of the system. It does not exist in the system. Okay.
Okay.
Independent variable or IDV. We denote it as capital I, then small d and V is the variable that creates the effect. It is endogenous in nature, means it already exists in the system. So your dependent variable is always represented by y, whereas independent variable is always represented by x. Clear on this part?
Yes, sir.
See, when you have one independent variable and one dependent variable, this is called the univariate situation. Okay?
Yes.
When you have either two independent variable or two dependent variable, this is called bivariate situation. And when you have many independent variable and many dependent variable, that is called the multivariate situation. So as of
Okay.
now, I am discussing the univariate situation, where you have one dependent variable and one independent variable.
Okay.
Okay. Now
Okay.
your independent variable is divided into two categories. So how many independent variable you have?
We have metric in metric and categorical. In metric, we have two, and in categorical, we have two: nominal, ordinal, and
No. I am asking that you have one dependent variable and one independent variable. Okay.
yes. Yes.
Further, your independent variable is divided into two categories.
Okay.
So you tell me how many independent variable you have.
No, I could not get your point, sir.
I have told you have, let's say, I want to test what is the effect of a particular brand of deodorant over my over the viewers, right?
Yes.
In this case, what is the dependent variable and what is the independent variable?
Um, Deodorant, what I can say is a independent variable.
Huh?
Uh, the deodorant will be the independent variable,
Okay.
and when it cause some effect that on which it will cause effect, that will be the dependent variable.
Let's say that effect is coming in form of perception.
Okay, perception will definitely be the independent variable.
Dependent variable. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I have shown that advertisement to two groups of people separately.
Okay.
In this situation, My independent variable has been divided into two categories,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Now I am asking, in this situation, how many independent variable you are having?
That means I have a two independent variable.
No, you are having only one independent variable. Your independent variable is having two categories. That's why I
Okay.
was asking this question. Most people get confused at this point. Still, your independent variable is the advertisement divided into two categories. Now, one category is male and another category is female.
Okay.
Clear at this point?
Yeah.
So, I want to measure effect of advertisement, a deodorant advertisement on the overall population who are watching it, on their perception. Perception becomes a dependent variable, advertisement becomes an independent variable. Now I'm further saying that my viewers are divided into two groups. Means the same advertisement is now having two groups. One male group and another group is female group.
Female.
Okay.
Yeah.
The characteristic of male and female are entirely different from each other.
Yeah.
That's why we call them as independent samples. See, first you have created two groups, it will become a case of two sample test.
Yeah.
Now, further, you will see that whether your groups that you have created are independent of each other or dependent of each other. If they do not share the common characteristic, if they are unrelated to each other, this is called the case of independent sample. If I'll come to dependent sample later on, let's continue with independent sample. Now, male and female will have different perceptions by the virtue of different kind of natures.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I have to see what is the effect of advertisement on the perception of the people, where people are divided into male and female. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Now you got my research problem.
Yes.
Okay. If you don't get it, let me know.
Okay.
Now, if your data is the data you have taken is categorical data, directly move on to, see, this test is always the non-parametric equivalent of this test. Mann Whitney is the non-parametric equivalent of t-test, independent t-test. Okay.
Okay.
So what happens if you are having that measurement in the form of categorical data? Okay.
Okay.
So what will happen? Categorical data, since it's you cannot apply any statistical assumptions to that, so it's very clear that it won't be normally distributed.
Okay.
You cannot measure all those mean, standard deviation. So if you can't measure mean, you cannot measure standard deviation. If you cannot measure deviation, how can you come to say that whether it's normally distributed or not? Because more and more the deviation from the mean is there, more and more skewness will be there, but you are unable to determine that what is the deviation in this case, right?
Yeah.
So if it's categorical data, directly move to the non-parametric equivalent of independence test. Okay.
Okay.
Else, if it's a metric data, that's why I said this is very important to understand the difference between metric and categorical. If it's a metric data, check for its normal distribution, whether it is normally distributed or not. If it is normally distributed, then check for homogeneity or homoscedasticity. If it fails to follow the normal distribution, again you will go for Mann-Whitney test. Else you will proceed for testing homogeneity of variance. If it fails to have the homogeneity of variance, you will again go to the Mann-Whitney test. Else, if the situation is yes, you will go for independent t-test. Clear?
T-test. Yes.
This is how we arrive at a conclusion. We cannot say randomly that we will apply this test. there is a proper scientific method to arrive at a test. Okay.
Okay.
Now take the case of dependent sample. Now I am saying that my population is divided into two groups, but those group is in terms not in terms of male and female. I am trying to measure effect of advertisement on the perception of the people at the time of launch of the advertisement and after 3 months of that advertisement.
Okay.
Are you getting my problem?
Yes.
That there was one new brand of deodorant that was launched in the market. Its advertisement was telecasted on the television. So when the first time it was telecasted or for the first week and after 3 months, of course, after 3 months of watching that, those that advertisement perception might change. It might not be that the first time you see the advertisement and you have some build up some perception or you go for buying. Okay, but if you
Okay.
see it continuously for 3 months and it's telecasted and again, then only it can create a brand awareness among you.
Correct.
So now situation is I want to measure the advertisement on the perception of the population at the time of launch of that advertisement and after 3 months. Here again, I have two categories.
Yeah.
That category is time.
Yes.
So, is my sample unrelated to each other?
Uh, no, sample are related because the same sample we are taking.
Yeah, the same. You are taking the same sample over different period of time. Only that is the difference.
Yeah.
The sample is the same. Their characteristic is the same.
Same.
Okay. So they are
Yes.
dependent samples. Okay.
Yeah.
Now again you check for categorical data. If it's taken on a categorical data, you will go for the non-parametric test called Wilcoxon test. Okay.
Okay.
If it's taken on a metric scale, you will check for normal distribution, normally distributed. Here, homogeneity of variance test is not done because since you are having no unrelated groups, so there won't be any variances.
Yeah.
Group is having common characteristics, so there is no variance. So no need to bring in this homogeneity of variance test. Right after normal distribution, if it fulfills this situation of normal distribution, go for the pair t test or directly, or if it's a null case, then go for Wilcoxon test. The non-parametric. See, every test has their non-parametric equivalent. It's a very wrong idea that you don't do the test of normality, homoscedasticity, and directly move on to the test. You have to decide whether you have to go for parametric or non-parametric test. If you want to do an independent t-test, data is non-parametric, go for its non-parametric equivalent, Mann-Whitney. If you want to do a paired t-test, this is the situation as I have told you. In that case, paired t-test will be applied, but since it's not following normal distribution, go for its non-parametric equivalent called
I
Wilcoxon test.
Yes,
Hmm?
sir. I have one confusion here.
Hmm.
How come it became dependent sample? Because when the same sample we are taking, we do not change it, but only what we do over a period of time, we take the sample.
Hmm?
Sir, over a period of time, a gap of certain time gap, we have taken the effect. What is the
Here
effect?
you have see you have taken the gap, and that gap is the time. So with time, their dependency, interdependency won't change, na? With time, will their characteristic change?
No, the characteristic will not change.
So characteristic remains means here what I'm saying independence means that their characteristic is not equal. Here I'm saying the characteristic is the same.
Yeah,
So
characteristic is same. Yeah.
so in a
Yes.
nutshell, you can remember that situations like pre and post.
Yes. Pre and post.
Let's say
Yeah.
I want to measure the effect of a particular blood pressure medication on male and female.
Yeah.
Okay, that will
Yes.
become a case of independent test. Okay, if I want to
Yeah.
measure the effect of that blood pressure medication across all the people irrespective of their gender but over different time periods. Let's say after 3 months of taking those medications and after 6 months of taking those medications, what is the improvement in there? Is there any improvement, significant improvement in their blood pressure or not? Okay, here I'm not comparing male with the female. That is the case of dependent test. Okay,
Okay.
got it?
Yes, yes, I got it, sir.
This is the situation of pre-post. This is the situation of different groups unrelated to each other.
Yeah.
Okay, so
This is the
that's
male
how.
female. First one, when we consider the male
So
female
male and female, I have just given an example. Let's say
example. Yes, I got it. Yeah.
I can take group like teenager and older age.
Yes.
Huh?
Means the group
In,
characteristic.
in your study, you can take managerial level and non-managerial level.
Yeah, the group characteristic, if it is different, then it is independent.
That's why we say the independent. One group is independent of the another group.
Yes.
Clear?
Yes, sir. Clear.
So if this is the situation, then similarly we have non-parametric equivalent for correlation. Normally we measure Pearson correlation, but if it's non-parametric, we'll measure Spearman correlation. We measure the for regression if it's having all the assumptions of normality, linearity, we'll go for linear regression. Else we go for logistic regression or logit model or probit model or Tobit model, like that. Okay.
Okay.
So, bro, this is the example of red that I have given, dependent and independent. Again, let me make it clear to you. In this case, I have two rats. Okay,
Okay.
one is fed on cheese and got a weight of 15 kg. Another was given the normal diet. It got a weight of 5 kg. So their characteristics have differed.
Yes.
This is the
Yeah.
case of independence. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I have put the same rat, one rat who was weighing 15 kg
Yeah.
on diet, and after some time I measured its weight, it got to be 10 kg. This is the case of dependent sample. The rat remains the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's only a matter of time when it was given a treatment of dieting, its weight change, and whether this change is significant or not. If I have to measure that, then I will go for independent samples. Okay.
Yeah.
And then third situation is of replicates. Suppose if I am feeding the same rat on the and taking its weight on the same day at many different point of time. So again I am changing the time, but will it yield any fruitful result to me?
No, because the character does not change actually. The
In one
same
single day I cannot measure it, na?
yeah.
If say in the morning if I weigh him it's 15 kg, after morning breakfast 15.1 kg, then in afternoon 14.9 kg, again he has given something to eat, it's again weight 15 kg, by evening again 14.95 kg. There is difference coming between the weight, but is this difference significant? No.
No.
So this is the situation which we call as replicate. For example, in our case, if I want to measure the effect of advertisement on the people over different time of a particular day,
Hmm.
it will give some difference, but that difference is not significant. So if such is the situation, we'll call it as replicates, and that has to be removed from our sample. Okay,
Okay.
even
Okay.
the time difference has to be significant.
Okay.
So dependent independent sample, third situation is of replicates. Okay,
Okay.
so this is the normal distribution curve. I hope you are aware of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this normal distribution shows, see, I am taking height. So this line in the center shows that few of the people are short heighted, few of the people are large heighted or means taller, but average are having normal heights. Okay.
Okay.
If most of the people might be having higher heights, this would have been positively skewed. If they will be having shorter height, this would have been negatively skewed. Perfect normal distribution is when you have equal proportion. Average people has to be in significant average numbers. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
this is the normal distribution. Second, the homogeneity of variances. See, both the cases, if you see, there is a normal distribution. Population 1 and population 2.
Yeah.
Even this is normally distributed and second one is also normally distributed. But is there any problem with the population 1?
Yeah.
What is that problem?
Um, the average height is I think more in population 1 than the population 2.
See, it's very clear that it is having a very long range and very short duration.
Yeah.
Means distribution is very small.
Yeah.
This shows there is no consistency.
Okay.
Okay. So
Okay.
there is no homogeneity. In another case, you will see that it's spread over a long period of time and having a very average kind of distribution. This is the case of consistency.
Okay.
So it has no consistency. It has consistency. So it has no homogeneity means having consistency. It is not having consistency. It is having consistency. Okay.
Okay.
This is the concept of homogeneity. Now I'll come directly to SPSS. How to check all these. So do you know how to enter the data into SPSS?
Yeah. Yeah. That part I know, sir.
Okay. So okay, I'm just taking break of 1 minute, right?
Okay.
So are you there?
Sir, I'm here, sir.
Okay. So this is the SPSS. Open your SPSS. Is this visible?
Yes, it's visible, sir.
So let's say your question was, sir, how to code.
Yeah.
So let's say I have created a variable attitude. Do I need to tell you about how to create variable? I hope you are aware of that.
Yeah.
So this attitude is measured on a 5-point scale ranging from 1 to 5.
Okay.
Where 1 is strongly disagree, I am taking the classic Likert example. Okay.
Okay.
1 is agree, strongly disagree. 2 is disagree. 3 is neutral. 4 is agree, and 5 is strongly agree.
Okay.
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 So now coming to data view, this variable is created. So one, four, let's say respondents have responded like this. Two, one. Okay, I have
Okay.
entered six question as values on the attitude. The question on attitude, the people have responded from one to five. As per their response, I have entered here. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Will SPSS be ever able to understand that what this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 means when we analyze it?
Uh, no, we have to give them what exactly one indicate.
That is
Uh,
that actually what you I think you wanted to know कि how to give that,
yeah.
how to define that.
Yes.
It's very simple. Go to values,
Okay.
click on it.
Okay.
Have you got this?
Yeah.
Define 1 is equal to strongly disagree,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
2 is equal to disagree,
Okay.
3 is equal to
Agree.
neutral,
Okay.
4 is equal to agree,
Agree.
5 is equal to.
Strongly agree.
Now SPSS will be able to understand that what does these numbers mean.
Okay.
These are the numbers. It will be able to understand that the moment it's written 2, it will read it as
Uh,
disagree.
disagree. Disagree. Yeah.
If you have to check it, click on this tab. See,
Okay.
clear?
Yes.
This is how we code. This is what you wanted to know, I suppose.
Yes. Yes.
So you have to tell the software, else when you will compute these things, it won't be able to understand that what does it means.
Okay.
So your interpretation table won't yield you anything. Okay.
Sir.
Now if I'm, let's say, creating a chart for it, it will be able to tell me. Let's say pie chart. Now it's able to tell me that this much percent, let's be more accurate. Let's put data labels on it. Now it's able to tell you that out of the six people, one was having a strongly agree opinion, two were having strongly disagree opinion, one was having disagree opinion, one was having neutral opinion,
Neutral. Yeah.
and one was having agree opinion.
Agree opinion. Yeah.
If you don't, suppose if I do not code it, does this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 makes any sense?
No.
So you have to tell the software SPSS that what exactly this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 means. Okay,
Means. Yeah. Yes.
that's how you have to do coding. Now coming to the test of normality. Okay,
Yes.
how we do this test of normality. So I have given send you few files. that are in Excel format. So choose Excel from here.
Yeah.
Normal distribution. Are you having this file with you? Normal distribution one dot xlx.
Yeah.
Open this in SPSS. Opened.
No, sir. Sir, just.
I have taken only one variable. Similarly, you can take many variables at one time.
Yeah, sir. Let me go through this. You just cover it, then I'll practice again.
I didn't get you. Means
Sir, if I'll simultaneously open it, I cannot see what you are teaching, sir.
you can minimize your this window, na?
Okay.
You can minimize that window. I'll tell you step by step, so it will be clear to you, and you can see it also. It's better to practice with me. Then only you can practice means single-handedly. Should I proceed?
Yes, yes.
So I am having this file open. First, at one place you can write there are two methods of normality testing. One is Shapiro-Wilk method, and another one is one sample KS method. These are two statistical methods. One sample KS or Kolmogorov-Smirnov. These two were Russian statisticians who have given this concept. Okay.
Okay.
See, Shapiro-Wilk test is more powerful than one sample KS test. Okay.
Okay.
But the only problem with Shapiro-Wilk test is that if you have large sample size more than 50, okay,
Okay.
so Shapiro-Wilk it fails to render you correct results. So for large sample size, Shapiro-Wilk should not be used. For small sample sizes, it's okay. So this test is more powerful than one sample KS, but for large sample sizes, it does not work properly. So first we'll see by one sample KS method. Go to analyze, non-parametric test. Which SPSS version are you using?
Sir, it's 26.
Okay. Go to legacy dialogs. We'll find this one sample KS. Got it?
Okay. Okay. Huh.
Click on analyze, go to non-parametric test, then go to legacy dialogs, one sample case. I am taking this serum protein.
Okay.
I don't have to change anything from here, nothing. I have to just click. By default, it's checked normal. Now you have this.
Okay.
What does this table indicates? Any idea?
Um.
Its written test distribution is normal. Isn't it?
Yeah.
So this means that test distribution is normal.
Test distribution is normal. Yeah. Yeah.
Does any SPSS give you the interpretation of the table?
No.
So how you are saying that this is the result? That's why I am asking that. There is a lot of confusion over it. This is the null hypothesis created by the SPSS. Okay.
Okay.
Else, if it is written, then no need to create this table and see the table report anything. You can simply report that SPSS is sent as distribution in normal. Your job done. But it is not the case. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to check this null. This is the null hypothesis.
Yeah.
Now see the entire thing. What is the value of P here?
It's 200.
Point
No,
two.
it is point 0.2. Point 0.2. Yeah.
Point two. You might be knowing the thumb rule that if P is less than 0.05,
Yeah.
reject null hypothesis.
Yes.
Or P is less than alpha. So alpha is your this significance level and P is this
Yeah.
SIG two-tailed. Okay.
Yeah.
Why it is two-tailed? Because it is measuring, remember that normal distribution. From the
Yeah.
center, it's measuring on the both side, whether the
Both sides.
distribution is, how this distribution is spread. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
So on the basis of this, you will write that since P is less than alpha, we reject the we accept the null hypothesis. Means we are not rejecting the null hypothesis now.
Yeah.
So test distribution is normal. Or simply you can write if the P value is more than 0.05, test distribution tends to be normal. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
The same you can check with Shapiro-Wilk method. See, if you want to check with one sample case alone, then this is the method. If you see, there is no direct method of checking Shapiro-Wilk method, so you have to check it by some other way. You won't find any direct button over here. So you have to go for descriptive statistics, explore, take this into dependent list, go to plots, select normality plot with test. Done.
Yeah.
Continue. Okay. Now here you are getting two tables, Kolmogorov Smirnov and Shapiro-Wilk.
Shapiro-Wilk.
So if you want to do Shapiro-Wilk, you have to do like this method, but it will also give you Kolmogorov Smirnov statistic. And see, this statistic is same as the above when we have done this Kolmogorov Smirnov in a single manner, right?
Yeah.
So even if we cross-check with Shapiro-Wilk also, the null hypothesis is accepted. Means test distribution is normal.
Yeah. The p value is less than, here in first case, the p value is less than 0.5.
No, p-value is more than 0.05, no? Not 0.5,
Okay.
0.05.
Okay. 0.05. Yes. Yes.
95% confidence interval and 5% significance.
Yeah.
5% if you convert it into numbers, what it will yield you? 0.05, no?
0.05. Yeah.
It's greater than 0.05.
Yeah.
So the distribution is normal in both the cases, even if you check through this or you check through this. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now coming to graphical method. This is the normal QQ plot. You can show it graphically also. If your responses lie very close to this line,
Okay.
then your distribution, the more they are closer to this line, the more the distribution is normal.
Okay.
The more they are far from this line, the more if they are are you able to see my mouse moving?
Yes. Yes. Mouse is moving, sir.
Okay. So if it is going, if they are scattered towards this direction, it is called positive skewness.
Okay.
Okay. And if
Okay.
they are scattered towards this one, it is called negative skewness.
Okay.
And if they are close to the line, very close, the more they are closer to the line, the less is the skewness and more is the normality.
Okay.
This is these two are statistical method. This is graphical method. You will also get detrended normal QQ plot. You have to nothing to do with this one. Only this one, normal QQ plot. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
And another method is histogram method. So go to descriptive statistics, frequencies, select this value, charts, select histograms, show normal curve on histogram. Continue. Okay. Now see this.
Okay.
Have you got this?
Yeah.
By
Yes, sir.
seeing graphically,
Yes,
by
yes.
by seeing graphically also you can tell that the distribution is normal.
Normal. Yeah. Sir, there are 3 points, 4 points where the frequency is more. Means outlier position is there. What we can say?
Sorry.
Sir, in 3 points, you can note it that the frequency,
Hmm.
the normal distribution when we map it through graph, the
Hmm.
histogram shows that it is normal distribution. How can we represent those areas which are beyond the normal distribution curve?
They lie in the error zone, sir, na?
Yeah, this one. Yes, yes, correct. Yeah,
This this one, na?
yeah,
So these are actually having higher frequencies, and if the curve goes to this covering this one, then it won't be normally distributed. So only this area lies in the normal distribution. Rest are outliers.
yes. That part. Yes, I
Ah,
got it, sir.
so,
Yeah.
so that are outliers. Okay.
Okay. Whenever that value will come, suppose the value is not given, but in that point the value will be given, then we can consider
Hmm.
beyond that value everything is outlier.
That they lie beyond this normal distribution. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the only area. Basically, this histogram will tell you that your entire data set is normally distributed or not.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the how we do the normal distribution. Now I have given you a second case. This was the normal distribution of serum protein in all the cases.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I want to check whether this serum protein is equally distributed or normally distributed among my group categories, male and female.
Okay.
See, sometimes we take this is the overall summary.
Yes. Overall summary.
Now,
Yeah.
now my see, I am measuring the serum protein
Yeah.
in the blood sample.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Now I want to measure whether the males are having the equal distribution as compared to females.
Okay. Okay.
Whether this serum protein, see, it might be that on an entire population it is coming up normally distributed. It
Yeah.
could be a case that in male it could be normally distributed, in female it could not be.
Yes. Yes. There may be
Getting my
chances, sir.
point?
Yeah.
There are chances. Means my group categories. If I have created some categories, I have to also to check whether along the categories also there is a normal distribution or not.
Yeah.
If that is the case, then I am telling you the situation. So you open this file. Normal distribution 2.
Yeah.
Now 1 stands for male
Okay.
and 2 stands for female.
Remain.
Are you
Yeah.
seeing this data set?
Yes.
So analyze again the same. I'll go with the same method, explore method. So serum protein,
Yeah.
and this is the factor list, male and female. See,
Okay.
factor list, group list, independently, category list, they are the same. Somewhere it
Okay.
will be written factor list, somewhere it will be written categories, they are the same. If you have the categories, then you will put it here. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
In plots, normality plot with test, continue. Okay. Now see, in case 1, test distribution is normally distributed. Are you getting this?
Yes.
In male also it's normally distributed, in females also it's normally distributed.
Distributed. Yeah.
You, you can check it through this QQ plot also. In case of one male, see, it's normally distributed. In case of female also, see, it's normally distributed. Somewhat, few points are far than the line. They are close to the line, but few points you can see here, they are farther from the
Yes.
line.
Yes, sir.
Why this is happening? See, here what is the value coming to be 0.089,
Yeah.
and here the significance value is coming to be 0.200. That's why it's more normally distributed as compared to this one.
Yeah.
But overall, they are both are normally distributed. You can see it through histograms also. Histogram to normal histogram.
Yes.
In case of first one also you'll see. In second case you will see in case of female what is happening. A little bit of skewness is
Outlier.
there.
Yeah. Outliers are there.
Ah. And skewness is also there a little bit of.
Yeah. Skewness is there. Yeah.
But overall it's normally distributed. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the perfect normal distribution.
Yeah.
Okay. Now coming to the second concept. So through this, now you see first you will decide on the data is metric or continuous. Sorry,
Yes.
or categorical. Continuous means metric data. Okay.
Yeah.
So data is so if it is metric, then again you will go for normality test. Now it's coming to be okay. Now you go for test of homogeneous because again my group is divided into male and female.
Yeah.
So you will go for Leibniz test of heterogeneity, or you will check whether there is homoscedasticity or not.
Yeah. Yes.
So go to analyze. See first open the data. For that we have a this one data. Um, Leibniz test one.
Yeah.
Open this data.
Okay.
It will be like this.
Yeah.
Again the same serum protein male female.
Yes.
Analyze. Go to compare means one way ANOVA.
Yeah.
Select serum protein, and in the factor list you have to select male and female
Yeah.
genders, because now you have two independent groups, so you have to check whether there is homogeneity in your data is homogenetically distributed in those groups or not.
Okay.
Click on options. You will find this homogeneity of variance test.
Okay.
Click continue. Okay. Now see this table. Leibniz test. What is the significance value?
0.1. 0.16.
0.16. 0.16.
Yeah.
It is greater than 0.05.
Yeah.
So data is homogenetically. See, in this case also the null hypothesis will be there is no homogeneity in the variances, and second one will be there is homogeneity in the
Homogeneity.
variances. So
Variances.
here by seeing this you will come to know that the null hypothesis is accepted.
Yeah.
And null hypothesis is accepted means there is homogeneity in the variances.
Yeah.
Similarly, the test distribution is normal is the null hypothesis. Here, test distribution is having a homogeneity of variance is your null hypothesis. So
Yeah.
the null hypothesis is accepted, which says that there is homogeneity of variances.
Variances.
Now, finally, you can move on to independent t-test because all the assumptions are met. Right?
Yes.
So I'm stopping for today here.
Yes. Yes. Yes, sir. Sir,
So
please, sir, share this video.